You know that feeling, right? You set this huge, ambitious goal, and for a week, you're on fire. And then, poof, the motivation just fizzles out. Well, what if the secret to real, lasting change isn't about massive willpower at all? What if it's about the small, almost invisible things we do every single day? That's what we're diving into today. The core ideas from James Clear's game-changing book, Atomic Habits. We're going to break down his simple system for making good habits actually stick and making the bad ones, well, just disappear. This quote right here, this is the engine behind the entire book. It's so simple, but so powerful. We're always told to go big or go home, right? To make these massive overnight transformations. But Atomic Habits says, forget all that. The real magic, the secret sauce, is in the compounding power of getting just 1% better every single day. Now, I know, 1% sounds like nothing, but you let that compound over a year, and that's where you get the truly remarkable result. And I mean, who hasn't been there? You decide, this is it. I'm going to go to the gym every day, or I'm finally writing that novel this month. You start out with so much energy, and then life happens. You fall off the wagon, it's so frustrating, and it's easy to think, what's wrong with me? But here's the big idea. What if the problem isn't you at all? What if it's your system? Okay, this image right here, this explains everything. This is why so many of our new habits just die. See, we expect our progress to look like a straight line, right? A nice, steady upward climb. But in reality, it's not like that. The most powerful results are delayed. Habits compound, just like interest in a bank account. It starts slow, almost invisibly, and that gap, that space between what we think should be happening and what's actually happening, that's what James Clear calls the valley of disappointment. This is the danger zone. It's where most of us give up, literally right before things are about to take off. So, what's the solution? It's this mental shift right here. It changes everything. Instead of trying to push this giant, impossible boulder up a hill all at once, you just focus on one thing. Stocking one small, manageable stone every day. That's it. That's your 1% improvement. It feels tiny, almost insignificant in the moment, right? But behind the scenes, the math of compounding is quietly working for you, building something absolutely monumental over time. And if you want a real-world example, look no further than the British cycling team. For 100 years, they were basically a joke, totally mediocre. Then, in 2003, this new guy, Dave Brailsford, comes in, and he has this one philosophy he calls the aggregation of marginal gains. It just means looking for a tiny 1% improvement in everything you do. And I mean everything. They tested different massage gels. They hired a surgeon to teach the athletes how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. They even figured out which pillow gave each rider the best night's sleep. On their own, these things sound kind of crazy, right? But together, they compounded into an absolute avalanche of success. We're talking multiple Tour de France victories and a ton of Olympic gold medals. It worked. So that brings us to the name itself, Atomic Habit. And it's called that for two really cool reasons. One, it's atomic because it's tiny, like an atom, super small and easy to do. But it's also atomic in the sense that it's the fundamental building block of a much bigger system. And just like an atom, it's the source of incredible power. All right, so that's the big idea. Now let's get into the how, the practical step-by-step toolkit. The rest of our time here, we're going to walk through the 4 simple laws for building better habits, making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy, and finally making it satisfying. All right, so section 1 is all about that core idea we've been talking about, how tiny changes can lead to truly remarkable results. It turns out that every single habit you have, the good, the bad, all of them, follows the exact same 4-step loop in your brain. First, there's a cue, which is the trigger. That leads to a craving, the motivation. Then comes the response, which is the actual habit. And finally, the reward, which satisfies the craving. The 4 laws are basically just a super simple way to hack this loop. For any good habit you want to build, you just ask, how can I make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying? Okay, let's dive into that first one. Section 2, law number 1, make it obvious. This is all about that first step in the loop, the cue. Think of cues as the little triggers in your environment that kick off your habits, a lot of the time without you even consciously noticing. Just think about it for a second. Your willpower, it comes and goes. It's a finite resource. But your environment, it's always there, quietly shaping your decisions. We love to think we're in total control, but the truth is we're way more likely to do whatever is the most obvious, easiest option in front of us. That's why redesigning their environment is one of the most powerful things you can possibly do to change your behavior. Here's a perfect example of this in action. A hospital cafeteria wanted to get people to drink more water. Now, they didn't put up posters or try to give a motivational speech. They did something way simpler. They just made water more visible. They put bottles of it in every single drink fridge and next to the cash registers. And the result? Just from that one simple, obvious change, water sales shot up by almost 26%. And soda sales went down. It just goes to show, you don't need more motivation, you just need to make the good habit the obvious choice. Okay, moving on to section 3 and law number 2, make it attractive. Our brains are basically reward-seeking machines. When we do something that feels good, we get a little hit of dopamine. And that tells our brain, hey, that was great, let's do that again. So the logic is simple. The more attractive a habit is, the more you'll anticipate that reward, and the more likely you are to actually do it. And here's something fascinating. The most successful, most habit-forming products out there today, they aren't creating new desires in us, not at all. They're just latching on to the same ancient, fundamental human motives that have driven us for thousands of years. Think about it. The need to find love, we use Tinder. The need to connect, we scroll Facebook. The need to win social approval, we post on Instagram. Your habits are really just modern-day shortcuts to satisfying these deep, primal urges. So, how can you use this? Well, there's a brilliant strategy called temptation bundling. It's so simple. You just link something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, maybe you want to listen to your favorite podcast, and you need to exercise. So the rule is, you can only listen to that podcast while you're on the treadmill. See? You're bundling the temptation with the habit you need to build, which makes the whole thing way more attractive. All right, on to section 4, which brings us to law number 3. Make it easy. Let's be honest, we are all wired to be a little bit lazy. We naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance. It's just human nature. So the more friction, the more steps, the more energy a habit takes, the less likely we are to do it. The secret, then, is to reduce that friction as much as possible. I absolutely love this story from the book. There was a photography professor who split his class into 2 groups. He told the quantity group they'd be graded purely on the number of photos they submitted. 100 photos got you an A. The other group, the quality group, only had to turn in 1 single photo, but it had to be nearly perfect. So, at the end of the semester, where do you think the best photos came from? It was the quantity group. Every time. Why? Because while the quality group was sitting around theorizing about what makes a perfect photo, the quantity group was out there just doing the work, practicing, experimenting, making mistakes, and learning. It proves that the key is just getting your reps in. It's about repetition, not perfection. And of course, the opposite is true for breaking bad habits. If you want to stop doing something, you don't make it easy. You do the opposite. You make it difficult. You increase the friction. There's this great story about the author Victor Hugo. To force himself to finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he had his assistant lock away all of his clothes. That way, he literally couldn't go outside and get distracted. He made procrastinating incredibly difficult. And that brings us to our 5th and final section, covering the 4th law that closes the whole habit loop. Make it satisfying. This is all about the reward. See, for a habit to really stick, your brain needs to feel some kind of immediate success right after you do it. That little bit of satisfaction is what tells your brain, hey, that was a good thing we just did. Let's remember to do it again tomorrow. This right here is the cardinal rule of behavior change. Just remember this. What is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided. Our brains are not wired for long-term gratification. They evolved to want a reward right now. So if you want to make a good habit stick, like going to the gym, whose real rewards are weeks away, you have to find a way to make it feel satisfying in the moment. Here's a brilliant, low-tech way to do this. It's called the paperclip strategy. The story goes, there was this young stockbroker who at the start of every day would put 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paperclips, the other one was empty. And for every single sales call he made, he'd just move 1 paperclip from the full jar to the empty one. Why did this work so well? Because that simple little action of moving a paperclip gave him a clear visual sign of his progress. It was this tiny, immediate, and weirdly satisfying reward that reinforced the behavior. It made him want to keep going until he moved all 120 paperclips every single day. So, let's wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway? The path to incredible results isn't about some massive, heroic effort. It's about your system. It's about focusing on those tiny 1% changes. It's about shaping your environment. And it's about running every habit you want to build through those 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And that really brings us to the end. Because the power in all of this isn't just knowing the ideas, it's actually doing something with them. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to really think about. What is one tiny change, one atomic habit that you could start today that your future self will thank you